We last looked at our strawberries at the end of last year when we trimmed them down and we gave them a feed. So by now we'd be expecting for the leaves to have regrown and hopefully even for some flowers to be starting to form as well. This is part 8, I believe, of this grow along. However, if you haven't joined in yet, then it is a perfect time to head back to video 1 and actually look at starting to purchase some strawberries and start growing your own. Today we're going to have a look at replacing any of the strawberries that have been damaged. For me, I've had a mole that has come up in the strawberry bed and one of them have been buried. So when the crowns are buried, they don't do very well and they won't produce. So that one needs replacing, maybe another one. So from the runners from last year, I can just replace those. And then the next thing that I would also be doing is popping some straw around the strawberries just to give the strawberries something to sit on rather than sitting onto the damp compost as we did last year. This can cause issues with slugs. So far this year hasn't been as bad as last year, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not we need to bring out all the organzo bags like we did last year, which you pop round each of the strawberries and it just stops them being munched hopefully before you get there yourself. If you didn't actually trim back your strawberries at the end of last year, then you can still do that now. And at that point, rather than taking off all of the leaves, what you'd be actually doing is removing any that are going brown or have died back and leaving the greener, healthier looking leaves. So that's still possible to do now. And then you could also add some chicken manure pellets, bloodfish and bone, or some compost around them. I wouldn't add manure at this time of the year because that can cause further issues. But feeding the bed now is absolutely fine if you didn't do that back in the autumn. If you did do it in the autumn, then the chances are that you won't need to repeat it at this time of the year. But if your soil is quite depleted and you do find that they really struggle, then you can add some slow release fertilizer as well. For me, because I did it at the end of last year, I'm just going to be leaving the strawberries to do as they will. For any that we're growing in containers, this is going to be different. So once again, any leaves that are brown or dying, we can look at removing, but we will want to make sure that they are watered and fed regularly. They don't have access to the nutrients that any that are growing in the ground do have. So it is going to be really important to make sure that these are fed regularly. Once a week or twice a week, depending on the feed that you're using, is usually adequate, and that should help you have a bumper crop. As these plants are now in their second year, we should actually be having a much larger harvest from these. Don't forget to check out previous videos of how to store them, clean them, and keep them good for as long as possible, and also to freeze them as well if you do have too many to eat in one go. So this is what the bed is currently looking like, and this is the one where I've had a mole that has come up and made this a little bit weaker, and they actually look like they would be okay. They've improved over the last few weeks. And then I've also got this one down here that's also not looking so happy, so I'm going to look at possibly replacing them too. And then we're also just going to have a look at removing any old leaves off of these. As we come around here, we can also see that they are starting to flower as well. Any that you've already got flowering that have got a black centre to them, that's a sign that they've got some frost damage and that they won't actually produce strawberries. So just remove any flowers that are like that. This is the other weaker of these plants here, and it may be that this has got a bit of the crown buried as well. So let's have a look at the roots to check there's nothing wrong with it. Good. Now, okay, some huge roots on this one. So there we go. Under this one, the rest of the roots are looking really healthy, but I have actually found a weevil. So these little weevils are very keen on strawberries, and it's something that you'll find can be a pest. quite often in our strawberry bed. So I will be looking at getting some nematodes and actually treating this bed. They're also quite difficult in pots as well. So if you've got any in pots that aren't doing as well, it's definitely worth having a look at treating them if you are having weaker plants. So I very stupidly took my scarf off that had my microphone on. So I'm just going to quickly talk over what I've done. So the first thing we did was to just remove any brown or damaged leaves. So now we've just got the nice fresh leaves that are left on all of the different plants. Then we removed this plant here. This was the one that had the mole hole that had been popped over it and the crown had been a little bit buried. So that's now been replaced with one of the runners. And this one here has also been replaced, and this was the one that we found the larvae underneath as well. And then we've just covered the bed with a decent layer of straw, so when the strawberries do come, they've got something nice to sit on. They're not sitting on any damp compost below. Before we do add the layer of straw, it is really helpful to make sure that the bed is well watered. So it's rained recently, or you give it a good soak. This is going to lock in the moisture and stop us needing to water them quite as much as the summer goes on as well. And then in this bed down here, which is the cold frame, these ones have been a little bit more protected, so they're that bit further along than the rest. Then there's lots of flowers coming, but we also have some fruit forming now as well, so these won't be far behind. So by giving them just a little bit of extra heat and a little bit more protection to make sure the flowers don't get frost damage, you can have that little bit more of an earlier harvest as well. Vine weevil grubs can be treated with nematodes, and I will put a picture up of the ones I'm using and the link to the company that I buy them from as well. And we will then have a look once they arrive at how you actually treat them. Usually we want to treat them twice in a year, and we need minimum soil temperatures as well. I think it's 5 or 7 Celsius. The other thing that we will want is for the soil to stay wet afterwards. So you don't want to apply this just before you go on holiday if the weather's going to be quite warm. We want to make sure that we can continue to water them for the next week or two.